Welcome to the UNF Library. I'm Stephanie Race, the Head of Research and Outreach and the Liaison for the Engineering Program at the university. Today we're going to talk about finding engineering resources through the library, and we're going to kick that off with a brief intro to some tools within the library that'll make your search a little easier. So if you go to the library's website at www.unf.edu/library, there's some things you can do right off the bat under the Library tab here. So if you go to Library, under My Accounts, there are three tools that I want to mention. The first is the Remote Access link. If you start your research from off campus, you'll want to make sure that the system knows that you're a university student. To do that, simply click on Remote Access and follow the steps, which will ask you to enter your N number and your password. Any university affiliate is welcome to use our resources from off campus, but you do need to verify that you are a student, faculty, or staff member. So simply follow those easy steps. The second tool that you'll want to know about is Refworks. We do have a video that you can watch to learn more about this, but in brief, Refworks is a tool that allows you to manage your bibliographic citations. It collects the information in the cloud on an account that you have access to, and once you've gotten your citations together, allows you to create reference works, works cited pages, do in-text citations within your paper. So I'd encourage you to create a Refworks account and use that as a tool that will make life a little easier and more efficient for you to do some of your research. And then the third tool here is Interlibrary Loan. Interlibrary Loan is a service the library provides to students, faculty, and staff that allows them to obtain materials that we don't own. So the library will borrow from another institution books and articles and other resources that we don't own and get them for you. This is a free service that's available for, again, all faculty, staff, and students. So now that we've talked about those three things, we'll go back to the library's webpage. From the main page, you'll notice that we have a search box in the center of the page. We refer to this as OneSearch, and it allows you to simultaneously search the majority of the resources that we own. There is a video that you can watch for learning how to use OneSearch, and I'd encourage you to do that if you haven't already done so. Because we're interested specifically in looking at engineering resources, we're going to start in another place here. Next to the OneSearch, you have a number of choices: finding databases, publications, course reserves, and other catalogs. We are going to start with the Find Database option. This allows us to search specific databases the library subscribes to, and which may be more appropriate for some of your research topics. Because we're specifically looking at engineering databases, we're going to actually use the drop-down for all subjects, look for our engineering list here, and select that. We do have database lists for lots of other topics, and you may find that some of those are going to be appropriate for your research as you go forward. On the database engineering guide, a couple resources that I want to show you that we're going to focus on here in the recommended list. So we will be looking at the first three databases on the recommended list. I will show you that there are a number of other resources available here, and some of them may look familiar to you in terms of names. So for those of you who are involved in student organizations, you may recognize the ASCE Library or the ASME Transactions Journal. So these are collections that the library subscribes to and that you have access to. On the right-hand side of this page, there is a code that you can use to determine what the symbols mean following the names of each of the databases. The one that you'll see most often, and is probably the most important for you, is the key that indicates that a login is required. This is why it's important for you to start your process doing the remote login. If you don't start with the remote login, the system will prompt you to go through that process, but you may get prompted on a more regular basis. You'll also see there are pictures of the liaisons for the engineering department. If you click on our names, you can get contact information and email us directly. There's also an engineering guide that you may want to take a look at that has additional resources. I'm going to open this in a new tab, and we'll take a look at that real quick just to point out some of the information that may be helpful to you. On this guide, you will find information for contacting the library. You can call us, text us, email us. You can also schedule an individual appointment with a librarian for research assistance. And you'll see my individual contact as well as on this page. Other things of interest on this page is the citing sources information, which talks a little bit about plagiarism, has additional information for you about Refworks, and has a little video there as well for plagiarism. There's a drop down under here with more information about the IEEE style that, in addition to providing some basics about it in terms of how to do the in-text citations and set up the references, there is a sample list of what needs to be included in your list, as well as examples for the different types of material and what the work cited will look like. At the top of the page, again, I'll mention there's the last tab is your search strategies, and we're going to go into some detail about how to create an effective search as we look at the databases today. But if you have questions as you get ready to set up your search, you may want to come back and take a look at this for additional information. I'm going to go back to the the engineering database list, and we're going to get started with our research. And typically when you're doing research, you've got a topic that you are interested in finding more information about. And we're specifically interested in today, for example, looking for information on preventing damage to power poles during hurricanes. So you may have seen photos after hurricanes of the power poles snapped in half. And so interested in what can be done about that, what kind of research is out there. And so because for me this is an engineering topic, I'm going to start with one of these databases. And we're going to start with the Compendex for Engineering Village, which is the most general database. And it's going to open up and provide us with the ability to do a search. As we look at the search, you'll see that it's dropped us into a place where we can put our search in here. If you're used to using Google, you could type in a search and it would pop up your results. One of the things I like about this database and some of the others we're going to look at is that it does allow you to add different search fields. So we're going to start with our search, and our initial search, I'm looking for information on power poles. And I'm just going to go out and search for that. That's the main thing I'm looking for is power poles. And when I do that search, I get 20,000 results back. And that's a lot of information to go through, way more than most of you probably want to look at. And so I am going to scroll back up to my search here and see that I've got an option to add a search field. So I'm going to add a search field because I want to add another term. I mentioned that we were looking to what happens to power poles during hurricanes. And so my first concept is power poles and my second concept is hurricanes. And the system has, when I added my second box, added an and. The default right there is and. So it's going to look for the power poles, and it's going to look for hurricanes, and I should get fewer search results back because both of these terms have to be present in my record. And so you'll see when I come back, I get 43 records back. 43 is not a lot, and I feel like I could go through those. What I like to do when I'm doing a search is scroll through the results that I got to see, are my words showing up like I thought they would in the titles or the abstracts of the articles? And are there other words that appear that I might want to add to my search to either refine it or broaden it out? And as I look through these, they look like they're the kinds of things I was interested in. You'll know, oh, this one here mentions utility poles. And so utility poles, power poles, probably very similar. And so I'm going to go back up to my top and actually add that concept in. And I'm going to add it here with my utility poles, or with my power poles. Power poles and utility poles are synonymous. They're very similar concepts, mean about the same thing, and so I'm going to combine them together using the OR operator, which tells the system either what power poles or utility poles, I don't care which, but one of those has to be present in my record. OR is going to get us a bigger set, and so theoretically power poles or utility poles limited down to our hurricanes, we should have a few more than 43. I don't anticipate it'll be a lot. I think there's going to be some overlap here. But we're going to redo that search, and we come up with 49. And you see that the system's combined those together. We've added a few more things. You'll notice on the left-hand side we have the ability to refine our search. So we might have wanted to narrow to a specific type of document. If we had too many articles, we could look at specific authors, specific author affiliation. We have language years. There are a number of ways we could limit our search here. But our search is pretty small, and I feel like it would be an appropriate list to go through. As I look at my results, I always like to scroll through and are they of interest? Are they going to be appropriate? What's the most appropriate? I can select specific results by clicking on the entries. I'm just going to start with the first entry here because it does look like it might be useful in terms of the research I mentioned. As I click on the title of it, I get complete information about the article. I also get an abstract which provides me a little more detail about what the article is about. This tends to be a great way to determine if this article is something I want to actually read the full article. So that summary of the article can be helpful before you move into reading the entire document. And then I have something I also like to look at is the vocabulary, the keywords that are listed down at the bottom here. So I've got some main headings. Main heading in this database indicates primary content, and then some of the controlled vocabulary, just sort of like a thesaurus of terms that I might want to try if I needed to find additional material. So you can see there's actually a heading for polls. So maybe we wanted to broaden it out to just polls. I feel like we're okay with the specific kind of polls we're looking at. Also on this screen, you'll see that we have tools in Tools and Scopus. I really like this feature right here. This article has been cited 5 times. So since it was written in 2016, 5 people have cited this article, which means their work is somehow relevant to the work that we're looking at. And so this article, Half a Century of Reinforced Concrete Electric Poles, Maintenance Inspection, Field Testing, and Performance Assessment, definitely seems like something that might be of interest to us. So it's another way to find additional information. So we have those relevant articles. If you want to read the full text of the article, you're probably looking, where's the link to PDF, something like that, and you don't see it, but you do see this link source option. And I click on the link source. Again, it opens another window for me, but it pulls up the full text of the article. If the full text wasn't available, there would be a link here to connect you to submit an interlibrary loan request form. Within this, it's gone out to another database and found the article. I have an abstract. I can read the full article here. So I'm now seeing the full article. There's the abstract and then the complete article. If I read through it, one of the things I also encourage students to look at is the reference list. So if I scroll down to the reference list, these are the works that this article used to write their paper. And again, if it was relevant for this paper, it may be relevant for your paper. The references are always going to be older than what you're looking at. So some of them may be dated, and you do want to consider that. But here as you look, because of the way the citations are organized, it appears that the standards, the ANSI standards and the ASCE standards, which may be of interest to you, are showing up at the beginning. And then as you go through, we'll see we then have alphabetically by author the other works that are cited. So that may be something that you do want to consider. I'm going to go back up to the top of the page. So we'll also see that we can link to the records. I can download the citation for this. So if I wanted to keep this in my Refworks account, I would click on Refworks, determine what I want to include. Typically I include the citation in the abstract, and then download the citation. We'll send it to my Refworks account. I'm going to go back here. Oops. The other thing from within here, now that we're looking, is always look, people who've read this article also read some other articles, and again, they may be of interest to you as well. So just always read through what your options are to determine, are they providing you links to other related materials. Back to our search, we are at the first article, we are at 1 of 49, we could move through. I can also go back to my results, and again, I would be able to redo my search if that was appropriate. I go back to the database listing again, and we started with Compendex, which is a very general database, and we're going to look now at the IEEE Xplore Digital Library. The Digital Library is a great resource that many engineering students think isn't appropriate because they're not electrical engineering students. IEEE Xplore covers a multitude of topics, anything that relates to electricity and electronics. And so many of your topics will have an overlap there, and so it's an important database for you to take a look at. So we are going to go ahead and search for that. And IEEE Xplore opens, and you'll notice that it's got the UNF logo at the top, which indicates that I'm logged in, and it's recognizing me as being a UNF affiliate. So I should be able to get full access to what I want to look at. Now here I have one single search box, and I'm going to go ahead and switch to an advanced search. If I don't have that little plus mark that lets me add another search box, I always switch to an advanced search. And from here, I've got that same search that I looked at before, and so I'm going to go ahead and try the words that we used in our other search. So I'm going to use power poles or utility poles and hurricanes. You'll notice there are examples here, search operators. If you've got questions, there's always help within most databases. I did do something a little different here that I didn't try in the previous database, is that I put quotation marks around the word power poles and utility poles. The quotation marks are a standard search tool that you can use that tells the system you want to look for that as a phrase. So it's going to come back with power poles, utility poles, but the words have to be next to each other, a phrase. And so we're going to go ahead and do our search here. Oh, we only got 2 entries back. So this is concerning to me because I would have thought that I would have come up with more than that, and it makes me think that there's something wrong with some of my terms that I'm using. This is a good example of really using your search results to help you determine where have you gone wrong. It's also an opportunity, if you really can't come up with words, to contact a librarian for more assistance, and we'd be glad to help you. So here, because these two do look like they'll be effective, I'm going to go ahead and open one of them and see, does it give me some ideas of terms that I want to try. The title looks good. As I look at the abstract, as I just briefly scan the abstract, it does look like it's going to be appropriate. So I'm going to scroll down and see if the keywords are listed. And you'll see that I've got an option to go down and look at the keywords. In this database, they're at the bottom of the screen, so you do want to look around to find them. And I see that hurricanes is there, so we know that worked for us. But they're actually using a term called poles and towers. You'll see those are the IEEE keywords, and then the author had some keywords. They used wood utility poles. I think this poles and towers as an IEEE is probably what we want to search for. So I'm going to click on it. You'll notice they're hot links. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. The system's going to redo our search looking for that, and it used that term as an index term in that field. So it looked specifically in that field for poles and towers. We got 7,000 entries. That's a lot of things to go through. So let's narrow it down. And so if I look at the search screen, I can refine my search and search within this result. And I'm just going to go ahead and let's look for hurricanes, poles, and towers. Hopefully we'll get more than 2. So we got 28 results back, and I think we're probably on the right track now. As I look at the results here, system tells me we got 17 conference proceedings, 10 journals and magazines, and 1 early access article. So it's a brand new article that's out. Again, on the left-hand side, I have further ways that I can refine this, so I can look at narrowing by article publication date, author affiliation. So I have lots of options for narrowing. We've only got 28, so I won't eliminate any of them. And I'm going to go ahead and let's look at the first 2 are IEEE conferences, which are slightly different, and so we'll click on one of those because we've already looked at an article. So conference proceeding, if you look, very similar to the previous results we have options for more that are like this, so there's some overlap within these two articles. You'd have to look at them to determine what that is. We've got links for downloading the PDF of the article. I can download the citations. So if I click on this, I can send it, again, my citation abstracts out to Refworks, download it, it's going to send it to my Refworks account. I can view the references here. It's a plain text file, so I can't actually link back, but these are the references within the article. I could email it to myself, get permission to use it, and set up an alert. If I scroll down a little bit, I can read through this. I've got the information here. And if I wanted to look at the references, you'll see that I do have the references that are available within this article or this conference proceeding. They're citing 5 different resources, and there are links out to the article PDF or a link to the link finder if it's not available through this database. So again, just more information for you to use. And there we go. It's going to take us back to the top of the screen. So more information about the article, and then further ways to expand your research as you're going through the process. I'm going to go back to our results list. So we can see that we could go through and look at more. We can select multiple things. We can export multiple articles simultaneously. So that is an option. I'm going to go back again to the database list, and we're going to look at the third database, Materials Science and Engineering. And this is a little more focused, like IEEE. It's focused on the materials side of things. But you can consider the materials science in a pretty broad sense. So don't, again, be afraid to use this. It may be definitely worth checking out. Again, you'll notice that I come in and I have one place to put my search, and I could by now, we've created a pretty good search. I think we could put it in that way, but I like the advanced search and the ability to see how I'm combining my terms. And again, I'm going to do the same, whoops, I flipped them, but I'm going to utility poles or power poles and hurricanes, and I'm going to put the S back up here. And this search is a little different. It gives us a couple options that we haven't seen before. Here we have a very front and center option for limiting to full text, something I would not encourage you to do unless you're very last minute and you have to have it. But if you leave the full text off, you may come up with some articles that we don't have access to, but using Interlibrary Loan we can get for you. So you want to be careful how you use the full text limiter. We also have the peer-reviewed limiter. The little I tells you a little bit about what this means, but you may have heard your faculty members say you need to use peer-reviewed literature. And these are papers that have gone through a pretty rigorous process of review before being published. So again, another way that you can limit your results. You can limit by date. You also, as we scroll down, can see that you have an option for the type of source that's coming out. Is it a book? Is it an article? A magazine? What have you? What kind of document it is it an annual report, an advertisement, and then what language? So you do have a number of options here for limiting. We're going to leave all of those as they are and just search for our terms. And we went from medium-sized set in our first database to a tiny, tiny set with our first search, and then here we have 397 results. And so as I look at this, again, going to take a look at what kind of things am I getting back and what am I learning from what's on the screen. And so as I look at this, I see that when I look at the publication, the source type, so what kind of source is it coming from? Is it a journal? Is it a newspaper? What I'm seeing here is that a lot of these are coming out of trade journals and magazines. Trade journals and magazines are not as scholarly, and they're not, there's nothing wrong with them, but they're not necessarily as thoroughly researched as what you'll find in a scholarly journal. And so I don't want to look at almost 400 entries. It's a lot for me to look at. But I am specifically interested in a couple different types of publications. So I'm going to go ahead, click on the more, because then I can see all the types of sources that I've got. And I am going to say that I'm interested in scholarly journals. I'm interested in dissertations and theses that have been published. The reports might be interesting to see, and conference proceedings typically tend to be a little more rigorous in the research that goes into them. Depending on the type of information you're looking at, you may have actually wanted to flip this and say what is being said in the trade journals. You may actually get a very different kind of information out of trade journals. I'm going to go ahead and apply those limiters, and we went from 397 to 76 results. That's more manageable for me. I don't mind looking at 376, 400 is more than I want. But you can also see that we could, again, limit farther down. We only want to look at what's in full text. Maybe we want to limit by publication date, what have you. Publication date is a great way to limit if you know I really only want to look at the last 5 or 10 years depending on your topic. That can be a really good way to limit your results. As I look at the results here, again, similar to what we've been seeing, our keywords are highlighted. I've got the option to cite this. I can email it, I can print it. Save is my option for sending it to Refworks. So I have those options as well. And as I scroll through and look, you can see that I can look at an abstract. The little marble, remember, is the link that gets you out to the full text. So it's not immediately available, but it's saying that we can make a connection to see if it's available in another tool that we own. Some of these you'll see have a link out to the full text immediately. You'll also see, we've mentioned before, the links to the references within the article as well as the works that have cited this article. So this article was published in 2017, and there's one article that has cited it to date. And so this, again, is another way to make those connections for relevant materials, other relevant materials. So again, we'll click on one of this. We'll click on this because it is available full text. And you'll see that we have the full text of the document. The PDF is here. We can download or print that if we want. We have the links to the references. So you have those again. Relevant information, and then you'll also see we've got a link out to the cited by article. So what article has cited this, documents that have shared references. So there's some overlap between the cited references, the references in this paper and these others, and then works that somehow the system thinks are related. So they're just those connections. Again, I'm going to go back to our results. So we can just quickly scan through what we found. We did that search. We could check to see, again, the same kinds of things. We didn't take a look here at the subject headings, so we could see what are the subject headings that show up. And again, the utility poles and the hurricanes are showing up. So I feel like we did a good search here too in terms of our concepts. Identifying the appropriate concepts is probably the hardest part of creating an effective search, and is one of the things that you should ask a librarian for help with. So if you're stuck and you can't come up with the right terms, the right vocabulary, please feel free to contact one of the librarians for help. Remember, we mentioned we have the engineering guide. If we look at the engineering guide, all the contact information for calling our research desk, contacting the research desk is here. You can also chat with us if the system is online. You can contact me directly if you want to speak with me. And then you can also schedule a research consultation with any of the librarians. You can also find the research consultation appointment in the gray bar where we found the link for remote access. Under student resources is the research consultation that allows you to schedule a one-on-one appointment with the librarian. We're going to go back to our engineering guide. And the last two things I want to mention are that there are two general databases, Sciencedirect, and at the very bottom of our list is the Web of Science, so two multidisciplinary databases that we provide you access to that you may want to try if you're not quite finding what you want in the specific engineering resources. You may try those two more general resources as a way to get us additional information for your topic. So we've covered a great deal of information. Remember that there is always someone available to assist you through the research consultations by telephone, email, chat, what have you. And I want to thank you for joining us today, and have a great day.